You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Zev Brenner. This year is a momentous year for Israel, celebrating its 75th anniversary. But part of that celebration is some of the elite units in the Israeli army. I'm referring to the Givati Brigade, which was formed 1947. It's also the 40th anniversary since they reconstituted themselves in the 1980s. Our guest right now is Lieutenant Colonel Itzhak Levit. He serves as the chairman of the Givati Brigade Association, but he's also an entrepreneur. He's involved in high tech, and his software is being used by leading universities, including NYU here in New York. Lieutenant Colonel, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you for hosting me.
And I understand you've been part of at least 2 elite units, right, in the Israeli army?
Yes, I served in 2 elite units in the past when I was young and beautiful.
You still are.
Yes, and when I was about to discharge myself from the army after 8 years, the commander of one of these elite units told me, "Listen, Itzhak, we are not going anywhere. We need you because we are going to restructure Givati Brigade, the famous, the heroic Givati Brigade from the Independence War, and you will join us." And then I stayed for 5-6 additional years until I became a battalion commander in this unit. I'm very proud of that.
Tell us about the Givati Brigade, because it's an elite unit, it's prestigious, but for those that are not familiar with Israel, perhaps you can explain what their claim to fame is and what they do.
Okay, I know that people usually don't, they listen the name Givati, they don't necessarily know what it means, but I think the 2 points I should stress is one, that unless the heroic battles of Givati in the Independence War, the Egyptian would invade Israel and maybe reach Tel Aviv, and I'm not sure that Givati Israel will exist. It's at that extent. 2,500 soldiers or 2,900 soldiers managed to stop more than 15,000 Egyptians trying to conquer the kibbutzim in the zone, Negba, Nitzanim. It was a complete imbalance between the forces, but I think that what the Jewish spirit that was revealed in the Givati Brigade by then, it was something really exceptional. So this is the first I would say a very, very important piece of history of Givati. The second one is that since it was restructured in 83, after almost 30 years that it was only a reserve brigade, the Givati Brigade became over the years a leading brigade in all the most known and not unknown operations in the Lebanon, in the Gaza Strip, as well as in Samaria and Judea.
Now, is there special training that one needs to be part of the Givati Brigade?
I think that one of the very interesting things in Givati is that Givati brings together all the people from all the societies in Israel. Okay, it's not like an elite group that people are picked with they must be, in the top of the top. No. Givati enlists to its forces Am Israel. But the point is that when we enlist them, Am Israel, first of all, they join all together. It could be Sfaradim, Ashkenazim, religious, secular. By the way, we have a company of Haredis in Givati. Its name is Tomer. Only Haredi soldiers, and allow them to, to be together, and in order to be able to keep all the more strict rules of.
So they have a separate dining room? Do they have a separate?
No, not at that extension, not a separate dining room, but time for the service 3 times a day, food that is kosher lemehadrin, rabbis that come every 2-3 weeks to give a drasha, a lecture to the soldiers, things like that. So it's a melt pot of the Israeli society, including lone soldier, which I will explain later on.
By the way, you mentioned, you have the Haredi unit. You yourself are observant, and it's nice to see you keep on wearing a high rank in Givati and the other elite units in there. I would assume today there are a lot more religious soldiers than they were when you perhaps got started in the Israeli army.
Yes, you are absolutely right. I think that when I was a commander in Givati, I was a strange bird, we used to say in Hebrew. I don't know if it's the right translation.
That's the right translation. There's a strange bird or the odd man out, you know. And I understand they used to tell you, why be religious? Join the secular, become secular, right? Did they tell you that?
Became a man. You are now a dos. You are now a religious. No, but it's really by those days there were really few commanders in high position in IDF. You are right.
But today, I think it's changed where you have
Absolutely.
But you have more religious commanders.
Of course, it's
that's a revolutionary change.
Yeah, you are right. The religious commanders in IDF at all increased by exponentially in the last 20 years.
Out of curiosity, what made you decide to join the Army in that capacity? You've been there for a long time. You did more than just your tour of duty. What made you decide to stay on and take on a commanding role in the IDF?
I think it's a combination of 2 or 3 things. First of all, I come from a very Zionist home. My family, you know, some of them survived from the Holocaust. Some of them came from abroad, from Poland, from the Czechoslovakia, whatever. Our parents educated us that you don't have to take, you have to give. Very simple, okay? I think that this is the first issue, to grow up in a very Zionist, that you understand what is the role of having our state, the state of Israel. 2 is that I love it. I love it because you feel that you can educate, not only train, you can educate the next generation of entrepreneurs, of people that will go afterward to be in our country after they are discharged from the army, and to be good citizens and so on. I think that, to say it in one word, a very strong Jewish commitment and the belief that Netzach Israel lo yishaker, and we must take part in this eternal promise.
Now, you combine the skills. You're an entrepreneur, you're a business person, and you were able to combine the skills of that as well as to the Givati Brigade. So you're taking business skills, right? Because you're making it more professional.
Yes, I would say in some way you are right. You know, without, God forbid, criticizing any of the chairmen that were before me, too. They were before me since '83. One of them was a brigadier general in IDF in the Independence War. He was, you know, like a veteran style. He did a lot of things. He had a lot of credit, but he was not an high-tech entrepreneur. The same thing about the second one. So I was the first one that came with a different way of thinking about the role of the association. And because of that, on top of what they did, I built the next stage. And the next stage was to establish a lot of welfare projects for lone soldiers, for needy families of the Givati Brigade, and even some scholarship to discharge soldiers, to bring them to the academia, because without our assistance, they will never even think about that.
Now, how many, I'm going to use the word graduate, for lack of a better term, of the Givati Brigade is there over the course of time? It's 75 years. So do we have a number of as to how many people went through this brigade?
Yes, we have a number. It's about, over the years, 0.5% of Israel population today, about 40,000, yeah.
About 40,000 have gone
yes,
through.
Over all the years, of course. Even maybe a little bit less, 36, 37, but...
All right, that's close enough to 40,000. We can, we can do that. Wow, that's amazing. So we're looking at a very important part of Israeli history. Now, Israel's celebrating 75 years. The Givati Brigade was formed at the end of 1947, reconstituted in 1983. So they're celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Givati Brigade and the 40th anniversary of their recalibration. Our guest is Lieutenant Colonel retired Itzhak Levit. He is the chairman of the Givati Brigade Association. but he's also an entrepreneur, and he has a software company, and he's involved in technology as well. By the way, your software, I understand, is being used by different universities, including NYU in New York and other places?
Yes, of course. Princeton, Harvard, UCLA. I think, first of all, the top 10 universities in the US are all our customers in my company. And beyond that, we have about 40, including, by the way, Brandeis and Touro College. Yes, we are doing very well.
What kind of software is it?
Okay, what we provide is a combination of software, of e-publishing software that we develop by ourselves with a lot of protection or content protection tools. And on top of that, the content itself. We are very professional in the Jewish databases. This is more or less 20% of our business. The Responsa project of Bar Ilan, Adea Nosach, which is a very, very, very strong database that was released by Professor Shama Friedman, awarded the Prize of Israel before 10 years ago. So we are in that field, and our customer is the university, usually the Department of Jewish Studies or Religion Studies in that specific university.
Can you send them a program that shouldn't be so anti-Israel? Can we do that? Because some of these are very woke. Touro College is okay, but I'm talking about the other ones. So even Columbia and in New York, they're anti-Israel. You find a lot of activity. So maybe there's some way you can send them a program to reprogram. They certainly need it. A lot of these universities today.
That might be a very good idea. You're right. By the way, Columbia University also our customer. And I will tell you something else. Maybe I can tell you two short stories. One is that I am involved deeply in a project that is named the Holocaust Responsa Project, which is a database that was selected from thousands of books that bring the question and answer that are asked by people during the Shoah, during the Holocaust. And we put it online, and it is online already for 5 years. But the second one, and the most important one, is that Professor David Alivni, Zichrono Livracha, was a very good friend of mine. You know, he was the head, if I remember well, the Department of the Jewish Studies or the Talmud Studies in the Columbia University. And he came to Israel. He made Aliyah before 15 years ago because of my wife. She convinced him to come, and she helped him to overcome all the constraints he has. He said, okay, my wife is sick. I don't know where I will start looking for the apartment. I don't know. I don't have any skill to do that. My wife told him, Professor Alivni, you just will go to the airport to take the airplane with your wife, and I will take care of all the rest. And that is exactly what happened.
I interviewed Professor Levit, very interesting person. He was an Eloy. He was a gigantic mind and a scholar.
Wow, incredible.
Incredible. It's a small world, but I remember Professor Livni very, very well. So here you are. Your passion, of course, is being an entrepreneur in the software, and that's what you do. That's where you make a living. This is your volunteer work, working with the Givati Brigade. So perhaps you can tell us, now you're raising money for Lone Soldier and to help the soldiers in so many different ways, as you've outlined, and we'll mention it again. So the question I have for you is, what separates, let's say, a group such as yours, the Givati Brigade Association, and one like FIDF, the Friends of the Israeli Defense Forces? What makes it different?
Okay, first of all, I want to stress again, for my livelihood, I am in the high-tech world for 30 years. And for my soul, I was elected before 12 years ago as the chairman, and I am really doing it with a lot of passion. And I think I get the highest salary in Givati Brigade. You know from where? From above. I hope so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, you're doing
I hope so.
You're protecting Israel. Shomer Yisrael, right?
Yes, I really hope so. And but I think that I
wonder what separates, what makes you. A lot of
yes,
people may not be familiar with the Givati Brigade, but they're familiar with FIDF or Lev Belev, these groups that also help and work with soldiers. So I want to know what differentiates what you do from what these other organizations do.
All right. So first of all, FIDF I respect very much because I think that they are doing a great job mainly in the US, and they are really raising a lot of funds for all the army units. But they are, doing it from a very high level. We are in a complete different resolution. We are micro welfare projects. It means that when people donate to our association, they know that it will fill the gap to help soldiers in Israel or their families from ultra social economic background, cases that you can't imagine that can exist in Israel, which is considered a rich country.
Give us an example of a case that you dealt with that.
I have visited myself this type of families, mainly, by the way, from Ukraine, from Russia, from Ethiopia, Uzbekistan. You enter into their home, you open the fridge there, you don't find nothing. 2 bottles of water, 1 bottle of milk, and a piece of bread. And you say, okay, so what do your children eat? They say, I go before Shabbat, there is a charity somewhere in the corner of the street, and I get from them some food, and I have the social security, and that's what I live. That is the good case, because in other cases, the mom is drugged, and the dad is in jail. It also happened. And then what we want to do through this project is to say to the soldier, listen, don't worry about food, don't worry about electricity paying and things like that. We will take care of that. And what we do on a monthly basis, we send to those families. We have today almost 20 families that we support. We send them a basket of food, and every month we have a person that is in charge of this project. He called them, what do you need? More rice, more bread, more food, more feed, whatever. And we carried out this project for 6 years. There was a downgrade in the project in the COVID epidemic. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it very efficiently, but now it is increasing. So this is one of the projects that we are very, very aiming to increase. The other one, it is about lone soldiers. We have in Givati an exceptional number of lone soldiers, 205. And that soldiers split into 2 main groups. 85 are soldiers that come from abroad. Any country that we have it from 28 countries. Uzbekistan, we have from Morocco, we have from Vietnam, of course.
Vietnam, wow.
Yes, we have soldiers from Vietnam. We have from France, from the US, we have 25 soldiers, lone soldiers, okay? Now, some of them have, let's say, a background, their families support them, but some of them are even orphaned. So IDF support them. It's not that IDF ignore them, but they support them only at a certain level. So here we come and fill the gap or necessary gap by helping them with the accommodation, or helping them to find a family that will adopt them and will come to the ceremonies when they finish, a specific stage.
So when you fill the gap, so what does the Israeli government give them, and what do you, and where, and what point do you pick up?
The IDF provide them with the 1,300 shekel, which is about $350. Okay, a month. Yes, a month. Okay, and sometimes in accommodation in a kibbutz, not always. Different people have different needs, and you can't take a religious soldier, for instance, to a kibbutz unless it is a religious kibbutz. The bottom line is that we have a lot of activities around that in order to fill a full package of fills all his necessities. This is true. By the way, 2 weeks from now, on the 5th of February, we are going to have a Lone Soldiers Day that we sponsor in our headquarters, which is in the south of the country. There will be more than 100 soldiers in that event. So this is one type. The other type are Israeli soldiers that they, for instance, come from Haredi families that they deny their existence because they say, oh, you are a Zionist? Now you became a Zionist, you go to the army, forget, you don't have family. And suddenly they find themselves 18 years old with nothing. And they don't have even sometimes the time or the mean. Okay, what I do now? I want to be a soldier. I want to be a fighter, but I need a support. I need a family. So that is the type of situation that
who do you match them up? So these Haredi soldiers that the family writes them off because they joined the Israeli army. They felt that they went to the Zionist side, which they don't like, obviously. So what do you do? Who do you pair them up with? Do you have Haredim that you match them up with? Who has become their surrogate parents, so to speak?
Yes, we have allocated soldiers, Haredi soldiers in houses of families in Israel. We try to find some mutual, something in mutual that they have together to make it easier.
So it's not necessarily Haredi families you match them up with. You can match them up with just religious families, or is it Haredi family? I'm just trying to get a picture.
Yes, no, it is usually religious families, not Haredi families, to find for Haredi families that are also Zionists, let's say in that way, is a little more difficult. So it is easier.
Why? Israel's a land of miracles.
Yes, it's really more difficult. Although there are exceptions. I know Haredi families that support their sons. They encourage them to go to the army, but it is the minority, the very small minority. And I hope.
But didn't it change? There was a period of time before politics got involved and it became an issue with discussing the Knesset and the media. And that's when I think the Haredim took a harder line. But before then, from what I understand, is that there was more of a movement to have Haredim join the army. But once the position became public, and they dug in their heels, and that changed. Am I correct in that?
You are absolutely right, although now it's changing again for good. It is changing again for good. And the reason is that also, one of the reasons that it was changing not for good is because the IDF took a decision that women can serve in almost any unit. And all this mix, they didn't like it. And also the politicians didn't like it. But, the art of the compromise, that's what should lead the thinking of the IDF commanders. The art of sometimes the impossible, but the art of the compromise. How you, in spite of all the constraints, you bring these Haredi soldiers to serve in the army. I can tell you by definition that a Haredi guy that learned in a cheder and then in a yeshiva for 18 years, and then 3 years in the army, I for granted he will success in his life, because these 3 years may add to his personality and to view and to knowledge something that was completely strange for him, something that he didn't know. And suddenly he doesn't need to live his strict rules, but from the other hand, he became part of our society, and that is more important.
Our guest is Lieutenant Colonel retired Itzhak Levit. He's chairman of the Givati Brigade Association, where he works to support the human needs of Givati's elite soldiers. He served 12 years in some of Israel's most elite units, and he's also an entrepreneur involved in technology. Some of his software is used by leading universities such as NYU and Princeton. So I know that there are lots of soldiers in the Israeli army from different backgrounds, and we spoke about the Haredim and, and their special needs. When I went to give out Shalach Manot in the Israeli army, I saw a lot of Haredim in the army. This goes back, a number of years ago. But I would assume that the reason why it's changing today, in order to make it, the Israeli army, now you're a businessman, you're an entrepreneur. I think a lot of those skills are learned in the army. Some of the biggest high-tech companies started from technology in the IDF.
You are right. This is well-known worldwide that Israel or IDF became like the the
The breeding ground, really.
Exactly. And you can see many discharge officers that serve in the elite unit of IDF, including the intelligence unit, by the way. They suddenly start populating or by themselves initializing new startup. And I think that there is a direct combination between the high-tech industry and the service in the IDF.
Now, have you brought some of the high tech to the Israeli army, to the Givati, to your association? Have you brought it? Some of the high tech methods to what you're doing day to day to help the Givati Brigade?
Yes, of course. One of the things I did, I want to tell you a story about that. I have a good friend for 40 years. He was the deputy president of a huge company, NDS, which was owned by Murdoch. Okay? And Murdoch, you know who I mean, the owner of a news corporation.
Murdoch, Rupert
Yes,
Murdoch.
Okay. So NDS was a company owned by Murdoch, and it was sold at a certain time to Cisco for $5.2 billion. Okay? The deputy president of that company is a religious guy that he also served in one of the good brigades of IDF, and we know for 40 years. And after he released, he decided to devote his life after he released from the company, okay, not from the army, to devote his life to social high-tech. And then he established a new non-profit organization which brings Haredis ladies that instead of going to the IDF or to Sherut Leumi is the national service, yes, they enlist for 2.5 years to this project. And this project means that they learn 1 year software engineering. Everything is paid by the non-profit organization that he developed. And then they develop projects that are for the welfare of different population in Israel. People with disabled, with mentality disability, with Alzheimer, hospital, Alin, Herzog Hospital. They approach them, tell me, please, what is your main problem in your hospital? They define the problem, and after a couple of months, they come with a solution. That's what they do. And they enlist to this woman that the potential is to be in one of the best intelligence groups. 8200 is the most famous intelligence unit in IDF. And instead of going there, they go here. Now, what I managed to do is to convince this friend to take to this same project, release soldiers. We have been excellent combat soldiers, but they don't have the background, they don't have the means, but they have the leadership, they have the seriousness, they have the discipline, and then to bring them to this project. And in fact, we have today in this project, it started with Givati, 5 soldiers, and now it extended to be almost 30 soldiers from different units in IDF. I'm pretty proud of that because I think that although I was involved, not from the beginning, I came with this idea and I promote that and I push that and operate that, it at the end of the day happened. And the second one is that we signed an agreement with one of the best academic college in the north of the country in order to allow, again, fighters of Givati to degree in engineering in fields that they are very specific to this academic institute, like oil, gas, water, and things like that.
We've been speaking to Lieutenant Colonel Reserve, retired Itzhak Levit. He serves as the chairman of the Givati Brigade Association. They're celebrating 75 years. and also their 40 years of reconstitution of the organization, 1983. They were formed originally in 1947. They support the human rights needs of the elite soldiers. They work towards perpetuating the legacy of the brigade and its fallen soldiers from their headquarters in the Yoav Fortress in Israel South. Lieutenant Colonel Levit, if people want to get involved, they want to learn more, how can they do so?
Thank you very much, Ed. Zev, can I tell you something? One, I wanted to tell you another story, which is a really interesting story. It's okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so we have another project, which is a mentoring project, in which it is named Down the Givati Road, a mentoring project in one we take retired high-ranked officers of Givati to mentor a new discharged soldier for 1 year. They meet every week, they have phone calls, and they lead these people to success. I personally decided to join also this mentoring project, and I took a guy that was that came from Ethiopia, very intelligent, really very smart, but without any skills. The bottom line is that after 1 year of mentoring, this guy is now started his first year of engineering in the Kinneret Academic College. It is something that he wouldn't imagine in his best dreams.
Wow, that's amazing. Continued success, Lieutenant Colonel. Itzhak Levit. If people want to learn more, they want to learn more about the Givati Brigade Association, they want to help you. It's a big celebration this year. How can people learn more? How can people participate in your very important work? How can people join? Is there a website where people can learn more information?
Yes, there are several options. Let's say the physical option is that people that come to Israel, they are invited to come to visit us in our headquarters in the Yoav Fortress in the south of the country, not far from Kiryat Gat. But beyond that, if people want to for instance, to donate, they can do it through our website, which is www.givati.org.il. There is a bilingual interface, English, Hebrew, and from there they can donate in a different way, PayPal and PEF. We are registering in PEF, so people can get the tax exemption if they donate through our website.
And I want to thank you for joining us. Continued success. Look forward. We'll speak again, God willing. And congratulations on the 75th anniversary of the forming of the Givati Brigade and the 40th year in 1983 of the reconstitution and the reinvigoration of this brigade. Thank you. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom, Zev. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for tuning in to
Talkline with Zev
For continuous news programs, TalklineNetwork.com, or our 24-hour-a-day listen line at 641-741-0389. For past shows, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms. Podcast.org. Thanks for listening to the Talkline Network.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.